So recently, Monica from Always an Adventure Luna and Jim from Hilltop Hiker, they tagged me in a YouTube video on their channels, asking me the 5 things that people wouldn't know about me. So maybe the first one is that I currently work at the AutoZone Distribution Center, and I've been there for close to a little over 9 years. And in the meantime, while I was working there, for a time I was going part-time and going to school, and I was studying to be an English teacher, but I changed my mind and decided it wasn't really for me. And prior to that, I had been living in China with the Peace Corps, teaching English there, and I had gotten my bachelor's degree in English, and just didn't know quite what I wanted to do with an English degree, and I always had my doubts about teaching English. Managing other people, not necessarily one of my strong points. So, yeah, I went through the credentialing program and was having a really hard time managing kids, and I ended up being placed at a school in San Bernardino High School, and with some 10th graders, and just could not manage very good, and I always found myself putting my foot in my mouth too, saying stupid stuff from time to time. So there's I don't know if this teaching thing is I'm gonna get myself in trouble or not manage kids very well. So I just ended up quitting. And when I was in the Peace Corps, I had a fellow volunteer who had been there a year before us. He was training us, and I think he saw that I was kind of out of place, and maybe he was even worried if I would make it. But he had given me a quote from Joseph Campbell, and he said, dude, just follow your bliss. That's the way to go. So I don't know. That always kind of hung in my mind, and so I ended up giving up on the whole teaching of English thing, and kind of set my mind to the idea of, like, well, if I'm not gonna be a teacher of English, I love books. You can see all the books behind me. Maybe I can write a book. So what's funny is, while I was living in China, in Chengdu, China, I ended up, having conversations with a lot of different people, and one of the people I met was a British woman, and we always like to have, like, kind of spiritual kind of conversations, and she was telling me that she was in the Aetherius Society, and since I live in California, in Southern California, I should check out Mount Baldy, a holy mountain, she said. I was like, a holy mountain, really? I never heard that before. And she's like, yeah, Mount Baldy's holy. And the Aetherius Society has a world peace pilgrimage there every year. So I was like, no way. And that kind of got me into this idea of pilgrimage, and I ended up reading a few other books about pilgrimage and kind of power places. I'll just kind of highlight them quickly. This Sacred Earth one by Martin Gray. Like, really a lot of interesting ideas about the different holy places and the energy that's there and whatnot. And I kind of got into Paulo Coelho, and his book, The Alchemist, was about a man's journey based on a dream, and then his own journey or pilgrimage on the Camino de Santiago in Spain. And then I kind of got into Vision Quests by Tom Brown. So, I kind of wanted to do my own pilgrimage and write my book about it. So I started, looking. I wanted to design my own pilgrimage too. Like, it just seemed too easy to go and do somebody else's. So I ended up probably choosing the hardest thing I could do, and that would be to traverse basically the San Gabriel mountain range, from the inland valley to the desert valley. And I had chosen several destinations along the way. The first one was a Buddhist temple in the Etowanda Fontana area that me and my wife happened to come across when we saw Chinese characters on a mailbox, and we became friends with them and with the nuns there at Leaning Mountain Temple. And so I decided I would start my journey there, and I would go through the Etowanda Preserve and up through the canyon and up to the San Sylvain Truck Trail, and then I would cross over Joe Elliot and through the backside over to Cucamonga and over the Three T's, and then down to Bali, down the North Backbone Trail, and then I would go all the way to Devil's Punch Bowl. But I didn't know where I was gonna stop, and I like Devil's Punch Bowl, and but there wasn't really much, places to stop, and Devil's Punch Bowl doesn't really have camping, and I wanted to go from the inland valley to the desert valley. So I'm looking at the map and I see this word Valyermo, and I think that's a really interesting word, Valyermo. I mean, it's a contraction of two Spanish words, Valle and Yermo. And, later I would ask Spanish speakers, have you heard of this word before? Like, no, we haven't. That even made it more intriguing. Like, some white person probably named it that. So I'm looking around and I see this Catholic monastery, the St. Andrew's Abbey, and I start reading about them and how they have retreats there that you can go on, and if you're lucky, you can get in and do a solo retreat. And I was lucky enough to be able to do that when they weren't busy with their group retreats. And what really kind of convinced me to stay there was I was reading about their history and discovered that they had been originally in Chengdu, China, of all places. And I'm like, what the freak? I'm like, what are the odds, I did my teaching in Chengdu, China, and the place I'm going to do my pilgrimage to, they were in Chengdu, China until they got kicked out during the Communist Revolution in the 1950s. And then they ended up immigrating or moving to the desert in Valyermo. So that was kind of my book idea, this journey to Valyermo. And I ended up deciding to do a vision quest. So that's So yeah, my first point, kind of to sum it up, was my job, and then my second point was, I wanted to write a book. I think my third point was I wanted to do a vision quest like the natives do. They go into the wild and they don't eat any food, and they just wait till they have their vision. Of course, everybody thought this was insane. Like, I can't believe you're gonna do this. And I'm like, yeah, I mean, I need a vision. I need to find out what the freak I'm doing with my life. So I'm like, I'm going into the mountains and I'm crossing to the other side, and I'm not gonna eat anything. I'm just taking water. And then my mother and wife are begging me to at least take some food, and I'm like, okay, I'll take 3 apples. And my wife's like, at least take some granola bars. I'm like, no, I will not take granola bars. she'll always laugh at me about that. So I end up, starting my quest at the Leaning Mountain Temple, and I go up through Etowanda Canyon, and mind you, there's no trail, it's all just a canyon, and I'd never gotten up to the actual top of it. So I just figured, I gotta get to the top. Every time I go up, I run out of time, so I'm gonna do it now. So I end up going up this canyon, and then I hit like a freaking rock face that's like 20 feet tall. I'm like, oh shoot, I can't give up now. So I just climbing up with a full-on backpack on. And kind of just like Paulo Coelho did in his book, The Pilgrimage. I'm like, this is crazy, this is insane, I'm gonna kill myself. Nobody's gonna find me in this canyon. I get to the next ledge, and boom, there's another like 20 or 30 foot rock face that I have to climb up. So, stupid me, I climb up it. And then, so I'm going up this canyon, and, I've been at it now for like 10 hours probably. You wouldn't believe, when you're driving down the freeway that you could spend 10 or whatever hours walking through those canyons. Doesn't look that far. And so then, I'm going up, and I just run into a wall of like buckthorn, and I end up basically what I like to call buckthorn surfing. Surfing over the buckthorn, climbing over it. Yeah, that didn't work too good. So I'm stuck out there in the buckthorn for hours, and I finally get to the road, the San Sylvain Truck Trail, or the Big Tree Cucamonga Truck Trail 1N34. It was like I came to, in those movies where the guy's been in the ocean and stuck, and they finally get to dry land, and it just felt like that. I just wanted to kiss the dirt, and man, was I tired. And so I make it over to Joe Elliot, pretty good time, and then I'm trying to follow the trail, the big tree trail up to Cucamonga. I think it's gonna be easy to follow, and I lose my way and end up going up a weird ridge all the way up towards Etowanda Peak, and which I ended up doing again another time. I swore that time I would never do it again, but I ended up doing it again. And I went back to try to find this trail, the correct way to go, and I found that this big tree trail is like completely overgrown, and it just became an obsession of mine that I want to fix it. So, but basically, getting back to the story, I made my way over to the Baldy Notch, and I was out of my apples by then. My 3 apples were eaten up, and I was like, I don't think I'm gonna make it on 3 apples. So I ended up getting the hiker's buffet breakfast, and I stashed some in my bag to take with me, and then I ended up going up to the top of Baldy, and I ran into the hiker Sam Kim, the Korean guy that sadly ended up dying on the top. And it was like we knew each other for a long time, because we ended up having lunch together and chatting for like an hour. And he's like, "Oh, you're very different. You're very different." When I told him what I was planning to do. And so yeah, I ended up, after chatting with him, and I ended up making my way down to Devil's Punch Bowl took the PCT down to Vincent Gap, and then over to the Manzanita Trail. I was at South Fork Campground, and boy was I tired. I fell asleep with an apple in my hand, and I was woke up in the middle of the night by a tug on it as an animal tried to get it out of my hand. It was like a coyote or something trying to steal my apple. Man, I was like barking at that coyote, like, "Ah, get away from my apple." And once I realized it was gone, I finished the apple. Now, I had plenty of water. I had filled up. There's a spring along the Manzanita Trail, and I filled up with the water there, and made my way to the St. Andrew's Abbey, and I was out of it. I was barfing in the desert, getting a little worried, and when my wife and mother came to pick me up, they said I looked like a skeleton. My mouth was like this, like. And that happened in like 2 days, because like my trip was like 4 days, I think. And like in a matter of 2 days, like it was like my life force was sucked out of me in the desert. Did I have a vision? Absolutely not. I had no vision. But maybe the universe was telling me not to be so stupid. So I definitely learned a thing or two, but I still do stupid stuff in the mountains, like insane hikes. So yeah, I don't know what to say about that. So that's kind of my point 3 and 4. I went on this vision quest. I wanted to write a book about it. In the course of events, I also got interested in writing. I wanted to write a book as well about rock and tree formations, and that's kind of where my YouTube channel came from. Rockhound Hiker. I look for rock formations that look like faces or whatever. My Facebook group, Pilgrimage California, came from my interest in pilgrimages. And my next point is I started, trying to make friends in the hiking community. And, I posted to groups on Facebook like Hike in Our California. And I met my current hiking partner, Francisco. And together we started the group HikeRevolution. We've been at it for maybe a year now. But yeah, we've done a lot of hiking together, try to get other people to join us. And I'm tagging Francisco as my first person. You get to tell us 5 things we didn't know about you. So, yeah, aside from my side interests in writing a book and going on vision quests, I'm also trying to work on HikeRevolution now as well, with Francisco. And this kind of leads into my last point, being trail maintenance. So the first hike I took Francisco on was Etowanda Ridge. And it was always my goal after that horrible hike up Etowanda Canyon to find a better way up to Joe Elliot from Etowanda. So together we found the way through Etowanda Ridge up to the top. And of course it's a bushwhack off trail. That's kind of where I got interested in trail maintenance. And so my current goal is to get more involved in trail maintenance with the U.S. Forest Service. I met a cool guy on Instagram, Brian with Backcountry Trail Work, and he told me that in May they have orientation, so hopefully I'll be getting involved in that, and hopefully I can adopt the Big Tree Trail and see it finished to perfection and maintain it through the years. So yeah, those are kind of some things that you might not know about me. So as far as the two other people that I want to tag, Robert from 5 More Minutes. I'm not sure if anybody's tagged you, but I love his channel. He puts out high quality hiking content. And Outdoor Athletic Enthusiasts with Xavi. He puts out excellent content as well and has excellent hikes to go on. He's had some off trail stuff. I think the very first hike he did to a waterfall was off trail. That's what kind of got me interested in him. But I haven't been to that waterfall yet, though I want to attend it at some point. So, that's about it for now. Until next time, later.